Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are jumping into Season 2, Episode 4 of our series, Threads of Tomorrow Crafting Textiles.
And we are going deep into the world of resist dyeing. Think Bandhej, Shibori, and so much more.
It's a truly rich, complex world. Our mission today is to explore what makes these crafts so significant and maybe a little more complicated than you might think.
Definitely more complex than that summer camp t-shirt kit, that's for sure.
Right.
We've looked at everything from, technical manuals to deep cultural histories.
Before we really get into it, we have to mention that this deep dive is brought to you by omimi.com.
omimi.com is all about helping you stay curious and connected to new ways of learning.
So to get us started, to set the scene, our sources kick off with a little story. It's a great way to ground ourselves in the basic idea.
Yeah, let's take a quick trip to the Pink City, to Jaipur. How would I play Barangi and you can be Rang?
Sounds good. Okay, so let me paint the picture. It was a sunny afternoon in Jaipur, the pink city of India, and Rang and Barangi are wandering through these bustling streets.
Just taking it all in.
Exactly. And amidst all this colorful chaos, a small shop catches their eye. Its window is just full of these mesmerizing tie-dyed fabrics. They're drawn in, and when they step inside, they're hit with this rich smell of dyes and just the warmth of the artisan's smiles. Hey, Barangi, have you ever noticed those vibrant, mesmerizing patterns on some fabrics? They look like they've been dyed with a kaleidoscope of colors.
You mean the tie-dye pattern? Yes, they're so captivating, aren't they? It's like each piece of fabric has its own unique story woven into the colors.
Exactly. And did you know that this art form has a rich history dating back centuries? It's called Shibori in Japan, Bandhej in India, and tie-dye in the West.
Really? I had no idea it was so ancient. Tell me more about it, Rang. I'm all ears.
Well, the basic principle behind Shibori, Bandhej, and tie-dye is quite simple. You bind, stitch, fold, or twist the fabric before dyeing it. The areas that are bound resist the dye, creating those mesmerizing patterns.
Ah, that's fascinating. So it's like a game of hide and seek with the dye, where the bound areas remain undyed. And that right there, that's the fundamental principle. That simple idea of resisting the dye is the jumping off point for what is really a global riot of colors.
A riot of colors. I love that.
And while resist dyeing is a huge category, today we're really focusing on the techniques that use tying and binding, with threads and fabric, the real knot masters.
Okay, let's unpack that. Because the core idea seems simple, but how do artisans get that incredible precision? Repeating these complex patterns across huge lengths of cloth.
That's where the real art lies. In Bandhej, for example, the names of the patterns tell you a lot. You asked about precision. Think about the Mothra pattern.
Mothra, right.
It's made of thousands of tiny, perfect dots. To get that, artisans use special tools, sometimes even just a specific fingernail, to pluck up a tiny bit of fabric and then meticulously knot a thread around it, over and over again.
That sounds less like dyeing and more like, miniature sculpture or something.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. And then you have other patterns, like Luria, which looks like waves. That requires a specific diagonal fold before binding. Or chunri, which is meant to look like the folds of a veil.
So the way you manipulate the fabric completely defines the final look.
Completely.
Let's get a little more technical on that manipulation. Our sources broke down a few key techniques. How does the physical action create the geometry?
Okay, we can sort of group them by the outcome. Let's start with fan folding. You literally pleat the fabric like a fan and then bind it super tightly. That precise pleating is what gives you those clean, sharp box patterns.
So very geometric, but what about the more organic-looking ones?
Right. For that, you have something like rouching. Instead of neat pleats, you're just sort of gathering and bunching the fabric. It creates these really textured, dimensional patterns. Some people say it looks like honeycomb or even crocodile skin.
It gives it a real tactile quality then.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's twisting and coiling.
Ah, the classic spiral.
That's the one. You twist the fabric really tight, maybe around a pipe or a stick, and then bind it. That tension is what creates those mesmerizing swirls that just radiate out.
And our sources also mention simpler things like knotting and bead tying. Are those sort of foundational techniques?
They are, yeah. Simple knotting gives you these wavy bands. And bead tie is probably the simplest. You just push a little bead into the fabric and tie it off to create a small resist circle. But these are the building blocks for the really, really complex stuff.
Okay, so let's talk about that complex stuff. You mentioned the crisscross lattice. What makes that one so difficult?
Well, this is where you get into sort of high-status work. First, the fabric is pleated. Then the artisan has to wrap thread in this incredibly precise diagonal pattern, a lattice, over the whole section.
Wow.
Yeah, the result looks like intricate lace. And because it takes so much time, historically, you'd only see this on textiles for royalty or for major ceremonies.
So the complexity itself is a status symbol.
It is. And you can contrast that with a technique like marbling. In this context, that's just scrunching the fabric into a tight ball and tying it. It gives you this lovely, cloudy, natural look, but it's much faster to prepare.
So there's a direct link between the labor involved and the final use of the garment.
Always. And we should probably clarify one thing. Our sources mentioned that swirl marbling, where you float dyes on water, isn't technically tie-dye.
Right.
But artisans will often use it with Bandhej or Shibori to get even more complex color effects. It's all about combining techniques.
That's fascinating. And it really shows that this isn't just one isolated craft. It's more like a global language. So how do other regions put their own spin on resist dyeing?
It's amazing to see the regional variations. If we say hop over to Thailand, we find a technique called mud mees.
Mud Mia.
Yeah, it's incredibly labor-intensive. Artisans tie these thick, multiple threads across the fabric to create a perfect grid-like pattern or tiny little checks. It's like textile architecture.
So a huge amount of planning is needed before you even get near the dye.
A massive amount. Then if you look at Southeast Asia, places like Indonesia, Malaysia, you find plongi, which is bit more straightforward. You just gather and bind the fabric tightly with strings.
And I think our sources highlighted a specific type of plangi, didn't they? Tritik.
Yes, good catch. Tritik, from Indonesia, adds this one crucial step. The fabric is first stitched with a running stitch before it's bound and dyed.
Then what does the stitching do?
It gives you these incredibly defined, straight, almost lace-like lines. It's a completely different look than what you get from just gathering the fabric. The needle adds a whole new level of control.
So it's another tool for precision.
Exactly. And we really can't talk about global resist dyeing without going to West Africa. The Yoruba people of Nigeria have a tradition called a dyer.
A dyer, right.
And it's so often defined by its use of these deep, rich indigo dyes. The patterns are often stitch resist, and it just reinforces how important indigo has been as like a fundamental color in textile history all over the world.
That deep blue is just such a historical anchor, isn't it? Transcends borders.
It really does. And speaking of anchors, we should take a quick moment to thank our sponsor, ohmemy.com, for making this all possible.
Absolutely. ohmemy.com curates some amazing content and tools to help you on your learning journey. And if you're enjoying this deep dive, you can join their WhatsApp community.
Yeah, it's a great way to stay in the loop about new podcasts, blogs, tools, and workshops we put together. Just scan the QR code on the poster for this deep dive.
The community is called Devi the Curious. And please use the comment box to tell us what you want us to explore next.
We really do read all of your suggestions.
Okay, so let's shift from geography to science, the color science. How do artisans manage to create these incredibly vibrant, multicolored pieces? It's all based on something called the color addition principle.
And this is really where the engineering meets the artistry. It's not just one dye bath. It's a whole planned sequential layering process. An artisan will dye the fabric. Then, critically, they'll untie some knots, maybe add new ones, and then re-dye it in a different color.
So they have to be thinking several steps ahead. It's like chess.
It is. Because you're not just adding colors, you're creating new ones where they overlap.
Right.
The perfect example is this. Say you dye a cloth yellow first. Then, in the next stage, you dye it over with blue. The final fabric will have 3 colors.
Yellow, blue, and green.
And green. Even though you never used any green dye, the artisan has to plan for that chemical reaction. It's a delicate dance of chemistry and foresight.
Historically, a lot of these colors came from vegetable dyes, right? From plants and roots, which gives them this eco-friendly reputation.
That's the tradition, yes. But we do have to acknowledge that natural dyes had their issues, Poor color fastness, it was hard to get the exact same shade twice. And that brings us to a really, really important question for today.
Which is?
Are all vegetable-dyed fabrics actually sustainable? Or are we sometimes being greenwashed?
That is a critical question. Just seeing that vegetable-dyed label isn't the full story. So what are the main things we should be looking out for?
Well, the first big issue is land and resource use. If you scale up natural dyes to a commercial level, you need a lot of land to grow the plants. If that's not managed well, it can lead to deforestation or take away land that could be used for food crops.
So the environmental footprint just shifts from one place to another?
Pretty much. The second issue is mordant toxicity.
Mordants, those are the fixatives, right? The things that make the color stick.
Exactly. And to make colors permanent, Especially for commercial production, the process often relies on chemical mordants. Our sources pointed to things like chromium, copper, and iron, which are toxic heavy metals.
So wait, even if the color itself is from a plant, the chemical used to lock it in could be the real pollutant.
That's the risk. These metals are really effective, but if the wastewater isn't treated properly, they're highly polluting.
Which brings us to the third issue, I'm guessing.
Water. Water intensity.
Yeah.
The whole process, scouring, mordanting, dyeing, rinsing it, uses an enormous amount of water. And without proper wastewater treatment, all those chemicals can just flow right back into the local water supply.
So the big takeaway here for anyone listening is that you have to look past the label. True sustainability means looking at the entire supply chain to avoid, being a victim of greenwashing.
It demands a really informed eye. Now let's zoom back out a bit and talk about the bigger picture, the sociocultural tapestry these textiles create.
Right, because in many Asian societies, color isn't just aesthetic, it's deeply symbolic. Bright colors are often tied to auspiciousness, to joy and celebration.
And that deep cultural desire for color has huge economic ripple effects. It drives entire industries, from the arts and workshops we've been talking about all the way to retail. It creates jobs and income for so many people.
And then there's the personal side of it, the socio-psychological impact. Wearing these vibrant colors can boost your mood, it's a form of self-expression, and it can signal your cultural identity or status.
Absolutely. This craft, which all starts with a simple knot, is really a testament to how humans can blend art, tradition, and these powerful socioeconomic forces to something lasting and beautiful.
What a journey. I mean, we started in Jaipur, then we got into the technical knots of Mathura and Rouching, traveled the world to look at Mudmees and Tritic, and then landed on this really vital conversation about sustainability.
I really hope you walk away with a deeper appreciation for the incredible skill and, frankly, the patience that goes into turning a simple piece of cloth into wearable art.
It's extraordinary.
Thank you.
And remember, this deep dive was brought to you by omimi.com. They're dedicated to curating resources to help you stay curious.
And to keep that curiosity going, please do join the Devi the Curious's WhatsApp community. The QR code is right there on the podcast poster. And please tell us what to dive into next in the comment box.
That's all we have for this deep dive. Thank you for joining us today, and be sure to follow us and stay tuned for more.
Goodbye for now. But before you go, here's a final thought to chew on. Considering these global traditions, Bandhej, Shibori, Adir, and their complexities, what hidden resources or overlooked plant dyes in your own local environment could be used to create a truly regional, truly sustainable textile craft? Something to think about until next time.